What happens when the most devastating war in human history collides with the golden age of color cinema? In the 1950s, Hollywood and beyond embraced vibrant hues, widescreen formats, and lush landscapes to tell haunting and heroic tales of World War II like never before. These films didn't just show battle, they painted it across the screen with drama, heartbreak, and spectacle. So, grab your helmets and heartstrings. Here are the 15 best World War II films of the 1950s that revolutionized the war genre in color. Sink the Bismarck, 1959. Before Top Gun and Hunt for Red October, there was this riveting British naval thriller, dramatizing the real-life Royal Navy operation to destroy Hitler's prize battleship, the Bismarck. Using taut realism and striking monochrome mixed with archival color footage in later prints, director Lewis Gilbert brings nail-biting tension to a battle fought not only with torpedoes, but with nerves of steel. The film follows Captain Shepard, played by Kenneth More, and his emotionally buried command decisions from London's war room, contrasted with the crew aboard the doomed German ship. The widescreen cinematography captures the cold steel of battleships and the chill of the Atlantic like never before. Though shot in black and white, some later versions were colorized, and its intense narrative structure directly influenced the aesthetics of 1960s and 70s war dramas. The film's focus on emotional restraint and tactical intellect made it a standout from the bombastic action fare of its time. It doesn't glorify war, it dissects its cost. Audiences praised its balance of historical accuracy and suspense, and critics hailed it as one of the most intelligent war films of the decade. In the pantheon of World War II films, Sink the Bismarck remains an unsung titan, a lesson in leadership under fire, wrapped in a cinematic torpedo. Pork Chop Hill, 1959. Though technically centered on the Korean War, Pork Chop Hill is deeply tied to World War II's legacy, both in its themes and the men who fought it. Directed by Lewis Milestone, the Oscar winner behind All Quiet on the Western Front, this color-saturated film doesn't hold back in its portrayal of the brutal, senseless struggle over a strategic hill that may not even matter. Starring Gregory Peck as Lieutenant Joe Clemens, the film captures a generation of soldiers trained in World War II, now lost in a murky, undefined conflict. Shot in stark, desaturated tones to echo the blood-soaked soil of the battlefield, Pork Chop Hill uses CinemaScope to make the cramped trenches feel inescapable. But what sets it apart is its psychological depth. Soldiers are seen questioning orders, breaking down mentally, and reckoning with a government more interested in negotiations than victory. Released during a time when patriotic war films were the norm, this was a jarring, haunting departure. Critics praised it for its gritty realism and refusal to romanticize the battlefield. In a decade rich with flag-waving war epics, Pork Chop Hill stands out for asking a daring question. What if the war hero doesn't want to fight anymore? This makes it a necessary bridge between the glory of World War II and the confusion of the Cold War, and a film that still echoes in modern war cinema. The Young Lions, 1958. A war film that dares to step into the enemy's boots, The Young Lions tells three parallel stories. A disillusioned Nazi officer, a reluctant Jewish-American GI, and a Broadway actor-turned-soldier. Marlon Brando, Montgomery Clift, and Dean Martin lead this powerhouse cast through a mosaic of the war's psychological toll. Brando's portrayal of a sensitive yet complicit German soldier was a shocking reversal of typical 1950s war villains, and it added emotional nuance rare for its time. The film's Eastman color visuals make every battlefield, ballroom, and barracks feel like a canvas drenched in mood. But it's the character study that truly shines. Each man wrestles with identity, duty, and fear, revealing that no side is free from doubt or despair. Released just before the 60s brought anti-war sentiment to the forefront, The Young Lions foreshadowed a world more interested in complexity than heroism. The film was critically divisive at the time, but has since gained appreciation for its daring moral questions and rich cinematography. In a decade full of glorified patriotism, this was a rare, haunting whisper of what war really does to the human soul. The Enemy Below, 1957. A chess match in the ocean's depths, The Enemy Below pits an American destroyer captain, played by Robert Mitchum, against a German U-boat commander portrayed with surprising dignity by Kurt Jürgens. What unfolds is not a clash of brute force, but of intellect, tactics, and mutual respect. As the two men maneuver through cat-and-mouse naval warfare, their actions reflect not just duty, but philosophy. Filmed in vibrant deluxe color and shot with CinemaScope, the underwater sequences were revolutionary for the time, using practical effects to simulate submarine tension with stunning accuracy. The film resists demonizing its enemy, instead suggesting that under different flags, men may still share the same courage. Winner of the Academy Award for Best Special Effects, it also marked a turning point in war storytelling, less about winning and more about understanding the enemy. Powell, in his directorial debut, crafts a suspenseful, intelligent thriller that still holds modern audiences in its grip. Heaven Knows, Mr. Allison, 1957. It's a war film disguised as a quiet love story. Heaven Knows, Mr. Allison pairs Robert Mitchum as a stranded Marine with Deborah Kerr's Irish nun on a remote Japanese-held island in the Pacific. As they hide from enemy patrols and starvation, a tender bond forms, not romantic, but deeply spiritual. This wasn't your typical battlefield epic. It was about survival of the heart. Shot in lush CinemaScope and Technicolor, the jungle feels both claustrophobic and beautiful, paradise trapped in purgatory. Kerr earned an Oscar nomination, and the chemistry between her and Mitchum, restrained yet magnetic, carries the entire film. John Huston directed with elegance, using silence and longing instead of gunfire to tell his story. It stood out in an era where explosions ruled, proving that not all war stories needed bullets. Sometimes the most powerful battles are fought quietly in the human soul. Battlecry, 1955. This isn't just a war film. It's a sweeping Technicolor saga about growing up too fast. Battlecry follows a group of young Marines from training camp to the Pacific Front, each wrestling with fear, love, and the loss of innocence. Based on the best-selling novel by Leon Uris, the film humanizes the war experience through romance, regret, and brotherhood. Raoul Walsh brings CinemaScope flair to every beach landing and emotional breakdown. The visuals are striking, but it's the ensemble cast, including Aldo Ray and Tab Hunter, that brings the story to life. Battlecry doesn't glorify war, it personalizes it. From drunken barrack laughs to final goodbyes on bloodied sand, the movie paints war as an evolving state of mind. Critics called it melodramatic, but audiences saw truth in its tears. For many young veterans, it felt like their story had finally made it to the screen, in full color and with full heart. They Were Expendable. Originally shot in 1945, this John Ford masterpiece got a rich Technicolor re-release in the mid-1950s, just as America was re-evaluating its wartime myths. Starring John Wayne and Robert Montgomery, it tells the story of a small PT boat squadron in the Philippines during the early days of World War II. But don't let Wayne's presence fool you. This isn't a triumphalist tale. It's a slow, elegiac tribute to the men left behind. The color restoration made the Pacific scenes pop with painful beauty, highlighting the tension between glory and loss. Ford's poetic eye captures not just the action, but the quiet despair of watching your country retreat. It wasn't a box office smash during its original run, but the 1950s revival gave it the appreciation it always deserved. In its newfound color glory, They Were Expendable became a melancholic masterpiece, one that reminded viewers that even heroes sometimes have to lose. The Gallant Hours, 1959. War movies rarely feel this introspective. The Gallant Hours follows Admiral William Bull Halsey during the Guadalcanal campaign, but not through traditional battle scenes. Instead, it unfolds like a somber character portrait, narrated with poetic solemnity, and focused more on leadership under duress than spectacle. James Cagney, shedding his gangster persona, delivers a commanding yet deeply human performance as Halsey. Shot in stark black and white but released in some Technicolor-enhanced international prints, the film emphasizes mood and decision-making over action. It's unusual among its peers for having no combat scenes, yet it crackles with the inner warfare of command. Director Robert Montgomery, himself a Navy officer during the war, crafts a film that feels like a tribute, not just to Halsey, but to every quiet, burdened soul who had to make life-or-death calls. It may not be the flashiest W2 film, but it's one of the most meditative and respectful. A salute rather than a roar. To Hell and Back, 1955. What if the war hero played himself? That's exactly what happened in To Hell and Back, where America's most decorated World War II soldier, Audie Murphy, reenacts his own harrowing experiences across European battlefields. From humble Texas beginnings to solo standoffs with German tanks, the film is a visceral, color-splashed journey through one man's courage and trauma. Shot in CinemaScope and Technicolor, it immerses viewers in muddy trenches and frozen forests, refusing to sanitize the bloodshed. But it's Murphy's quiet, haunted eyes that steal the film. Despite the patriotic framing, his performance hints at the psychological scars beneath the medals. At a time when war films often romanticized combat, To Hell and Back stood out for showing a reluctant hero who fought because he had to, not because he wanted glory. It became Universal's highest-grossing film until Jaws, and it remains a powerful example of wartime truth told by someone who lived every second of it. 12 O'Clock High. Though originally released in black and white in 1949, 12 O'Clock High was colorized and re-released in the 1950s and found a second life among post-war audiences. Gregory Peck stars as General Frank Savage, who must shape a demoralized bomber group into a precision fighting force in the skies over Germany. This isn't about bombs dropping, it's about men cracking under pressure. Even in color, the film maintains a raw, documentary-like atmosphere. The air raid sequences are almost suffocating in their intensity, and the movie captures the lonely isolation of leadership better than any war film of its time. Peck's performance is controlled yet deeply moving, especially as he slips from stern commander to emotionally frayed human being. While many World War II movies glorify sacrifice, 12 O'Clock High quietly mourns it. It's less about war than about what war does to those trying to keep others alive, and what they lose in the process. Above and Beyond, 1952. How do you dramatize the weight of dropping the atomic bomb? Above and Beyond attempts exactly that, focusing on Colonel Paul Tibbets, the pilot of the Enola Gay, as he trains in secret and prepares for one of the most consequential missions in history. Robert Taylor plays Tibbets with a mix of patriotic duty and emotional torment, while Eleanor Parker brings depth to the role of his alienated wife. Shot in striking black and white with some color promotional reels, the film carries the gravitas of a Greek tragedy. Rather than action, it deals in psychological suspense, government secrecy, and strained human connection. Tibbets becomes both executioner and ghost, a man tasked with ending a war at the cost of his soul. It may not be as well remembered today, but in the 1950s, Above and Beyond broke ground for its moral ambiguity and emotional realism. It dared to ask whether victory can come without guilt, and whether a man can ever come home from such a mission whole. Decision Before Dawn, 1951. Here's a war film that flipped the script. Decision Before Dawn centers on German POWs recruited by the U.S. to infiltrate Nazi lines in the war's final days. It's a story about betrayal, redemption, and identity, told through the eyes of Happy, a young German idealist who wants to end the madness. Oscar-nominated and shot on location in bombed-out post-war Germany, the film brought an eerie authenticity to audiences back home. Made in Technicolor with deep shadow work that often mimics noir, it walks a razor's edge between thriller and morality tale. The war isn't portrayed in black and white, literally or figuratively. Director Anatol Litvak, a refugee from Europe, injects the film with personal urgency, turning ruins into characters and dilemmas into suspense. Critics lauded its unconventional viewpoint and somber pacing. If Decision Before Dawn was ahead of its time, it's because it understood early that every war has gray zones, and every soldier carries ghosts, no matter their uniform. The Dam Busters, 1955. Precision, patriotism, and peril collide in The Dam Busters, a British war epic that turns engineering into a thrilling act of warfare. Based on the real-life Operation Chastise, the film tells the story of the Royal Air Force's daring mission to destroy German dams using revolutionary bouncing bombs. Michael Redgrave plays Barnes Wallace, the eccentric inventor behind the bombs, while Richard Todd portrays Wing Commander Guy Gibson, the stoic leader of the attack squadron. Shot in beautiful black and white, with later Technicolor prints distributed in international markets, the aerial sequences, especially the night raids, set a new standard for wartime realism. The film's authentic tone, built from meticulous technical details and reserved performances, inspired not only British audiences, but also George Lucas, who modeled parts of Star Wars' Death Star trench run after this very movie. It's not just a war film, it's a blueprint of bravery and innovation, and a soaring tribute to brains and courage in tandem. The Desert Fox, The Story of Rommel, 1951. One of the most daring films of the decade, The Desert Fox gave audiences something almost unthinkable at the time: empathy for a German general. James Mason plays Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, portrayed not as a Nazi zealot, but as a conflicted strategist drawn into a war he no longer believes in. Based on a biography by Brigadier Desmond Young, who knew Rommel personally, the film humanizes its subject with surprising tenderness. Filmed in rich black and white with vibrant Technicolor promotional images, the visual presentation was sharp and dramatic. But it's the narrative that breaks from the mold. Rommel's moral evolution and his eventual role in the failed plot to assassinate Hitler give the film the weight of Shakespearean tragedy. Critics were divided, but many praised its maturity and complexity. In a decade still healing from the wounds of war, The Desert Fox showed that history was more than good versus evil. It was full of men like Rommel, caught between duty and conscience. The Bridge on the River Kwai, 1957. Topping the list is a film that transcends the war genre entirely. The Bridge on the River Kwai is a monumental achievement, visually, thematically, and emotionally. Set in a Japanese POW camp, it follows British Colonel Nicholson, Alec Guinness, as he obsessively leads his fellow prisoners in building a bridge, not realizing he's aiding the enemy. William Holden plays the cynical American who sees the madness for what it is, but the real drama is internal, a battle of pride, honor, and blind ambition. Shot in stunning Technicolor on location in Sri Lanka, the film's jungle landscapes and sweeping bridge shots made for one of the most visually arresting war films of the era. But beneath the beauty lies a deep meditation on the absurdity of war. The haunting whistle of the Colonel Bogey March became iconic, and the explosive climax remains one of cinema's most unforgettable moments. Winner of 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Actor, and Best Director, this wasn't just the best Witu film of the 1950s. It was a seismic shift in how war would be portrayed forever after. From burning bridges to haunted heroes, these 15 films didn't just tell war stories, they redefined them. The 1950s color revolution made every bullet, betrayal, and battlefield unforgettable. If you love bold cinema and history that hits hard, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more epic retrospectives every week.